The woman's body hit the floor like a prayer unanswered. One moment she was sitting quietly in the corner booth of Romano's, the kind of mid-tier restaurant that pretended to be upscale but couldn't hide the worn carpet or the desperation in the manager's eyes, and the next she was on the ground, her teacup shattered beside her, her breathing shallow and erratic. Kemi was halfway across the dining room when it happened, balancing 3 plates on her left arm while a businessman yelled at her about his steak being overcooked. She heard the crash, saw the elderly Korean woman crumple, watched as every other server and customer froze like statues. Nobody moved, not the couple filming their food for Instagram, not the manager who lived in terror of lawsuits, not the other servers who'd learned long ago that getting involved meant getting blamed. But Kemi dropped her plates. The crash of breaking porcelain echoed through the sudden silence as she ran toward the fallen woman, her knees hitting the sticky floor beside the booth. The woman's eyes were half closed, her lips moving soundlessly, her hand clutching at her chest. "Someone call 911!" Kemi's voice cut through the shock. Nobody moved. "Call 911 now!" She was already checking for a pulse, her hands shaking but steady enough. The woman's skin was cold, clammy. Her breathing was too fast, too shallow. Heart attack, maybe stroke, definitely dying if someone didn't do something. The manager finally appeared, his face red, his voice sharp. "Kemi, get up, don't touch her. If something happens..." If something happens because nobody helped her, we're all going to hell. Kemi didn't look up. She was loosening the woman's collar, tilting her head back slightly, monitoring her breathing. "Call an ambulance or I will." "We're not paying for..." "Then I will." Kemi fumbled for her phone with one hand while keeping the other on the woman's wrist, counting the weak, irregular pulse. Her own phone had $17 left on a prepaid plan that was supposed to last 2 more weeks, but she dialed anyway. The operator answered. Kemi gave the address, described the symptoms, begged them to hurry. Around her, phones were out now, not to call for help, but to record. She could see herself in a dozen screens, the black waitress in the stained uniform kneeling beside the collapsed Asian woman, creating content for people who'd scroll past in 3 seconds. "Stay with me," Kemi whispered, switching to the woman's language without thinking. Her Korean was rough, self-taught from late-night drama binges and a desperation to understand her grandmother's stories, but it was enough. "Halmani, stay with me. Help is coming." The woman's eyes flickered open for just a moment. They were dark, intelligent, filled with something that looked like recognition even though they'd never met. Her lips moved again, forming words Kemi couldn't quite hear over the noise of the restaurant, the whispers of customers, the manager's continued protests. Then the woman's hand found Kemi's and squeezed with surprising strength. In that moment, fingers intertwined, 2 strangers connected by crisis and kindness. Neither of them knew this was the moment that would shatter both their lives and rebuild them into something unrecognizable. The ambulance arrived 7 minutes later. The paramedics took over with professional efficiency, asking questions Kemi answered as best she could. No, she didn't know the woman's name. No, she wasn't family. Yes, she'd be willing to come to the hospital to give a statement. As they loaded the woman onto the stretcher, those dark eyes found Kemi's again. This time, the woman's lips formed clear words in Korean. "Thank you, child." Kemi smiled, squeezed the woman's hand one last time, and watched the ambulance doors close. Behind her, the manager was screaming about the broken plates, the disrupted service, the scene she'd caused. He fired her before the ambulance even pulled away from the curb, his voice carrying across the parking lot where a dozen phones were still recording. Kemi stood there in the autumn cold, still wearing her uniform, her hands still shaking with adrenaline, and thought about the $400 in rent she couldn't pay, the eviction notice waiting in her mailbox, and the elderly woman she'd probably never see again. She didn't know that at that exact moment, in that ambulance racing toward Mercy General Hospital, the woman she'd saved was making a decision that would change everything. She didn't know who that woman really was. Kemi's life had always been a series of impossible choices between terrible options. At 26, she was working 3 jobs: waitress, overnight convenience store clerk, weekend house cleaner, and still couldn't afford a studio apartment without 2 roommates who stole her food and borrowed her clothes without asking. Her degree in social work sat framed in a closet because every agency wanted experience she couldn't get without taking an unpaid internship she couldn't afford. Her mother called from Atlanta every Sunday with the same questions. When are you coming home? When are you giving up on that city that doesn't want you? When are you going to stop being so stubborn? Kemi never had good answers. The truth was, she didn't know what she was fighting for anymore, only that going back felt like admitting defeat, like proving right every person who'd ever told her she was aiming too high, wanting too much, being too proud. So she stayed. She worked. She survived on 4 hours of sleep and dollar store ramen and the stubborn belief that eventually, somehow, things would get better. They had to. The night after saving the woman, after being fired, after crying in her car for 20 minutes, after adding up her remaining savings and realizing she had maybe 2 weeks before. Complete disaster. Kemi's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but desperation made people do strange things, so she picked up. Is this Kemi Adeyemi? The voice was male, professional, speaking English with a crisp accent that suggested expensive education and absolute confidence. Who's asking? My name is James Park. I'm calling on behalf of Mrs. Han Sukja, the woman you assisted yesterday at Romano's restaurant. A pause. She would like to see you. Kemi's heart jumped. Is she okay? The hospital wouldn't tell me anything because I'm not family. She's recovering well thanks to your quick actions. She's been asking for you specifically. Another pause. This one weighted with meaning Kemi couldn't decode. Mrs. Han would like to thank you personally. Would you be available to visit her this evening? Every instinct Kemi had developed from growing up poor and black in America screamed that this was suspicious. Rich people didn't track down waitresses to say thank you. There was always an angle, always a catch. But she also had $17 in her bank account and an eviction notice pinned to her door. What's the address? I'll send a car. I can take the bus. Mrs. Han insists. The car will arrive at 6 p.m. Please be ready. He hung up before she could argue. The black sedan that pulled up outside her apartment building at exactly 6 p.m. was the kind of vehicle Kemi had only seen in movies. Sleek, expensive, with windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. The driver was Korean, young, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He opened the door for her without speaking, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses even though the sun was setting. Kemi hesitated. Every true crime podcast she'd ever listened to screamed at her not to get in that car. But curiosity and desperation are powerful motivators, so she climbed in. The drive took 40 minutes, moving from her neighborhood of crumbling apartments and corner stores into areas of the city Kemi had only ever seen from bus windows. Gated communities, mansions with circular driveways, streets where the cars parked on the curb cost more than houses back home. They stopped in front of an estate that looked like something out of a Korean drama. Modern architecture blended with traditional elements, surrounded by walls and gardens that suggested serious money and serious privacy. The driver opened her door. "Mrs. Han is waiting in the East Wing. Someone will escort you." Kemi stepped out onto gravel that crunched under her worn sneakers. She was wearing her best clothes, a simple dress she'd thrifted, cleaned sneakers, her hair pulled back neatly, but she suddenly felt acutely aware of how out of place she was. The front door opened before she could knock. The woman who answered was young, Korean, beautiful in that intimidating way that suggested expensive skincare and personal trainers. She looked Kemi up and down with barely concealed disdain. "You're the waitress." Not a question, an accusation. "I'm Kemi Adeyemi. I'm here to see Mrs. Han." "I know who you are." The woman didn't move from the doorway. "I'm Minji, Mrs. Han's niece, and I think you should know that whatever you're expecting, money, a reward, some kind of payout, you're wasting your time." Kemi kept her expression neutral, a skill she'd perfected from years of dealing with hostile customers. "I'm not expecting anything. Your aunt asked to see me." "My aunt is elderly and recovering from a medical emergency. She's not thinking clearly." Minji's eyes narrowed. "We know what you people do. You see vulnerable old women and you see opportunity. But this family is protected. Whatever scam you're running." "Miss Minji." A male voice cut through the confrontation like a blade. "Step aside." The man who appeared behind Minji was striking in a way that made Kemi's breath catch. Mid-30s, tall, with the kind of face that photographs loved. Sharp jaw, intense eyes, perfect proportions that would have made him a model if he'd wanted. But there was nothing soft about him. He wore authority like other men wore cologne, and when he looked at Kemi, she felt X-rayed, analyzed, catalogued. This was dangerous. Everything about him screamed dangerous. Minji moved immediately, her defiance evaporating. "Appa, I said step aside." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Minji disappeared into the house like smoke. The man studied Kemi for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he extended his hand. "Kang Jae-sung, Mrs. Han is my mother. Thank you for saving her life." His hand was cool, his grip firm but not aggressive. Kemi shook it, meeting his eyes because backing down felt like losing. "I did what anyone would do." "No." His voice was flat, factual. "You did what almost no one does. My mother has been asking for you repeatedly. She says she needs to speak with you about something important." He paused. "I don't know what she wants to say, but I want you to understand something before you go in there." He stepped closer, invading her space in a way that was clearly deliberate. Kemi held her ground. "My mother is the most important person in my world. If you do anything to upset her, exploit her gratitude, or take advantage of her condition, you'll regret it. Do we understand each other? Kemi looked up at him. He was easily 6 inches taller and felt anger burn through her shock. Let me make sure I understand you. You invited me here. I came because your mother asked, and now you're threatening me because I'm what? Black? A waitress? Someone you think is beneath you? Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. People probably didn't talk back to him often. I'm protecting my family. By insulting the woman who saved your mother's life? Kemi's voice was quiet but sharp. You don't know anything about me. You don't know why I helped her, or what I want, or who I am. You just see someone you think you can intimidate because I don't have money or power or the right last name. She stepped back, her decision made. Tell your mother I hope she recovers well, but I'm not staying where I'm not trusted. Find someone else to threaten. She turned to leave. Wait. His voice stopped her. You're right. That was inappropriate. I apologize. Kemi looked back. He didn't look sorry. He looked conflicted, like apologizing was unfamiliar territory. My mother collapsed in public 3 days ago. Within an hour, 2 different people tried to blackmail us with videos. Another showed up claiming to be a witness who deserved compensation. When you spend your life dealing with people who only want something from you, you start assuming everyone has an angle. He paused. But my mother insists you're different. She says she looked into your eyes and saw something pure. She's rarely wrong about people. What do you see when you look at me? Kemi asked. He considered the question seriously. Someone honest, someone proud, someone who has every reason to be angry at me right now but is giving me a chance to correct my mistake. That's rare, too. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was close enough. Fine, Kemi said. I'll see your mother, but I'm not here for money. I'm here because she asked, and because ignoring elderly people is rude where I come from. That's it. Jae-sung nodded slowly. Follow me. He led her through a house that was half museum, half home, expensive art on walls, traditional Korean furniture mixed with modern pieces, everything pristine and carefully arranged. They passed several people, staff, Kemi assumed, who all nodded respectfully at Jae-sung and stared openly at her. They stopped outside a door at the end of a hallway. Jae-sung knocked gently, then opened it. Mother, your guest is here. The room was large but comfortable, more lived in than the rest of the house. Mrs. Han sat in a chair by the window, sunlight streaming across her face, making her look smaller and more fragile than Kemi remembered. But when she looked up and saw Kemi, her face transformed. Child, she said in Korean, her voice warm. You came. Kemi stepped forward, suddenly emotional in a way she didn't expect. Halmoni, how are you feeling? Better now. Mrs. Han extended her hands. Kemi took them, kneeling beside the chair. Because of you, I'm here. Because of you, I get to see my son again, my family, my home. How do I thank someone for that? You don't need to thank me. But I do, and more than that. Mrs. Han looked past Kemi to her son, who stood by the door watching them with that unreadable expression. I need to give you something. How many? I don't want. Not money. Mrs. Han smiled. Something more valuable, a choice, a chance. She squeezed Kemi's hands. In my family, we believe in fate. We believe that when someone saves your life, They become connected to you in ways that transcend coincidence. You could have walked past me. Everyone else did. But you stopped. You helped. You sacrificed your own security to protect mine. That's just being human. No, child, that's being exceptional. Mrs. Han's voice grew stronger. And I have lived long enough to know that exceptional people are rare treasures that should be protected, cherished, and brought into your family if the heavens allow it. Kemi's confusion must have shown on her face because Mrs. Han laughed softly. I'm old, but I'm not senile. I know what I'm saying, and I know this will sound strange, but I need you to hear me. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I want you to come work for me, not as a servant, as family. I want you to live here. Let me teach you things. Let me show you a different kind of life. And when my son comes to see what I already see in you, I want you to consider something even more precious. The room went very still. Mother, Jae-sung's voice was tight. Hush. Mrs. Han didn't even look at him. I'm old, Jae-sung. I survived a heart attack by grace and this girl's kindness. I won't waste what time I have left being subtle. She turned back to Kemi. From today, you are under my protection. No one will hurt you. No one will threaten you. You will want for nothing. In return, I ask only that you be yourself, kind, honest, strong. Will you accept? Kemi's head was spinning. I don't understand. You don't know me. I know enough. I know you broke rules to save a stranger. I know you lost your job because of it. I know you're struggling but still proud. I know my son threatened you and you stood your ground instead of cowering. Mrs. Han's smile widened. And I know that when I was lying on that floor thinking I was dying, your face was the last thing I saw. Your kindness was the last thing I felt. That means something. That means everything. Mother, this is insane. Jae-sung stepped forward. This is fate. Mrs. Han finally looked at her son. I've never asked you for anything, Jae-sung. I've supported your choices, even the dangerous ones. Now I'm asking you to trust mine. This girl saved my life. Now I'm going to save hers, and you're going to help me. The way she said it wasn't a request. Jae-sung's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Mrs. Han turned back to Kemi. So, child, what do you say? Will you let an old woman repay her debt? Will you let me give you a chance at something better? Kemi looked at this elderly Korean woman who'd decided, for reasons that defied all logic, that a broke black waitress from Atlanta deserved to be family. She looked at the son whose eyes promised complications she couldn't begin to imagine. She thought about her eviction notice, her empty bank account, her mother's disappointed voice. She thought about how sometimes the universe offers you a door, and you either walk through it or spend the rest of your life wondering what was on the other side. Okay, Kemi whispered. Okay. Mrs. Han's smile was radiant. Good. Then from this moment, you are mine, and anyone who harms you will answer to me. She didn't know it yet, but Mrs. Han Suk-ja was the matriarch of one of the most powerful Korean organized crime families in 3 states, and the words she'd just spoken were a binding oath that would start a war. But in that moment, all Kemi felt was the warmth of the old woman's hands and the terrifying weight of Jae-sung's stare. She didn't know this moment would change her life forever. She was about to find out just how much. Moving into the Han estate felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's life and finding that it somehow fit. Mrs. Han, who insisted Kemi call her Aomioni, a term of respect. An affection that meant mother had given her a suite of rooms in the East Wing, far larger than any apartment Kemi had ever lived in. There was a bedroom with a bed so soft it felt like sleeping on clouds, a bathroom with a tub deep enough to swim in, and a sitting area where morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows. But luxury came with complications. The staff treated her with confused politeness, unsure whether she was a guest, an employee, or something else entirely. Min Ji, the niece, radiated hostility every time they crossed paths, her comments calculated to remind Kemi that she didn't belong. And Jae-sung watched her constantly with those dark, analytical eyes, like he was waiting for her to reveal her true motives. Kemi ignored them all and focused on Aomioni. The old woman was recovering well, her strength returning day by day. She spent hours telling Kemi stories about growing up in Busan, about immigrating to America with nothing, about building a life in a country that didn't always welcome her. She taught Kemi Korean phrases, correcting her pronunciation with gentle patience. She asked about Kemi's life, her family, her dreams, and actually listened to the answers like they mattered. "You have your mother's stubbornness," Aomeoni said one afternoon as they sat in the garden, tea cooling between them. "I can hear it in how you talk about her. You fight because you're too alike." "We fight because she thinks I'm wasting my life chasing impossible dreams." What dreams? Kemi hesitated. She'd learned early that sharing dreams gave people ammunition to hurt you, but something about Aomeoni's patient, knowing eyes made her speak anyway. "I wanted to help people, kids specifically, the ones who fall through the cracks because they don't have advocates, don't have resources, don't have anyone who believes they deserve better. I thought if I got my degree, worked hard, proved myself, I could make a difference." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out the system doesn't want social workers who challenge the system. They want people who process paperwork and don't ask difficult questions." "So you gave up?" "I survived. There's a difference." Aomeoni reached over and took her hand. "Child, there's surviving, and then there's living. You've been surviving so long you forgot what you really wanted. But dreams don't die. They just hibernate, waiting for the right moment to wake up. What if the right moment never comes? It already has. You're here, aren't you?" Before Kemi could ask what she meant, Jae-sung appeared on the garden path. He'd been away on business for 3 days, business that no one explained and Kemi knew better than to ask about, and his return shifted the atmosphere immediately. He bowed to his mother. "Aomeoni, you're looking well." "Because I have good company." She squeezed Kemi's hand. "Jae-sung, have you been showing our guest proper hospitality?" "I've been busy." "Too busy to be polite to the woman who saved my life?" Something tightened in his jaw. "I apologized for my initial rudeness." "Apologizing is easy. Making amends takes effort." Aomeoni's voice was gentle but firm. "I want you to show Kemi the city, take her somewhere beautiful, help her understand this world she's entered." "Mother, that wasn't a suggestion." The silence stretched taut. Then Jae-sung looked at Kemi directly for the first time since entering the garden. "Are you free tomorrow afternoon?" Every instinct told Kemi to refuse. This man unsettled her in ways she couldn't name. He was too controlled, too watchful, too everything that screamed danger. But Aomeoni was looking at her with such hopeful expectation that Kemi found herself nodding. Good, Aomioni said, satisfied. Now both of you stop looking so miserable about it. You're going to see beautiful things, not attend a funeral. Jae-sung picked her up at 2 p.m. in a car that was somehow even more expensive than the sedan that had brought her to the estate. He wore casual clothes, dark jeans, a simple shirt, but managed to look like he was attending a business meeting anyway. They drove in silence for 20 minutes, tension thick enough to choke on. Finally, Kemi couldn't take it anymore. You really don't want to be doing this, do you? It's complicated. Try me. He glanced at her, something unreadable flickering across his face. My mother is the most important person in my life. When she collapsed, I thought I was going to lose her. Then you saved her, and now she's convinced you're some kind of blessing from heaven. But you're not convinced. I'm convinced you helped her. I'm grateful for that. But my mother has a tendency to see the best in people, to believe in fate and destiny and cosmic connections. She thinks you're meant to be part of our family. I think she's projecting hope onto a stranger because she's getting older and wants to leave a legacy. His honesty was brutal but oddly refreshing. So what do you think I am? Kemi asked. Gold digger? Opportunist? Someone who got lucky and is now taking advantage? I think you're someone who's struggling and was offered a lifeline. I think my mother's generosity feels like a miracle, and miracles make people overlook red flags. He paused. I think you probably mean well, but meaning well doesn't always translate to being good for my family. And if I prove you wrong, then I'll admit it. He almost smiled. I'm not unreasonable, just protective. They pulled into a parking area near a hiking trail that wound up through forest to a viewpoint overlooking the city. It was breathtaking, the kind of place Kemi had seen in Instagram posts, but never imagined visiting. They walked in silence at first, the path steep enough to demand focus. But gradually, something shifted. Maybe it was the beauty around them. Maybe it was the physical exertion that made confrontation harder. Maybe it was just the strange intimacy of being alone together outside the estate's watchful walls. Why do you work so hard to keep people out? Kemi asked as they paused at a rest point halfway up. Jae-sung leaned against a railing looking out over the trees. Because letting people in is dangerous. In my world, trust is a weapon. Show someone your weaknesses, and eventually they'll use them against you. That's a lonely way to live. It's a safe way to live. Safe and lonely often go together. He looked at her then, really looked at her, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle. Why did you help my mother? Real reason. Kemi considered lying, giving him the answer he'd expected, but something about this moment, this quiet space above the world, demanded honesty. Because when I was 8, my grandmother had a stroke at church. Everyone panicked. No one knew what to do. She died before the ambulance got there. Kemi's voice was steady but soft. I remember thinking that if just one person had stayed calm, had known what to do, maybe she'd still be alive. When I saw your mother collapse, I saw my grandmother. I couldn't save her, but maybe I could save someone else's family from that pain. Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry about your grandmother. I'm sorry you live in a world where kindness is suspicious. It's not the kindness I'm suspicious of. It's what comes after. People see my mother's gratitude as an opportunity. They see our wealth and think they've found a meal ticket. I've spent years protecting her from fortune hunters, scammers, people who think elderly means gullible. And you think I'm one of them. I think you might be genuine. That's almost worse. How? Because if you're genuine, my mother will love you. She'll bring you deeper into the family, and eventually you'll see things that will put you in danger you can't imagine. His voice dropped. My family isn't normal, Kemi. We're not just wealthy. We're complicated in ways that could destroy you if you're not careful. Are you trying to warn me or scare me away? Both. Kemi studied his face, the hard lines, the careful control, the walls built so high they probably hurt. What if I told you I'm not scared? What if I told you that after years of being invisible, disposable, and underestimated, being seen as valuable feels worth the risk? Something cracked in his expression. Then I'd say my mother was right about you being brave, and I'd worry that your bravery is going to get you killed. Before Kemi could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his whole demeanor changed, sharpened, hardened, became the dangerous man she'd glimpsed in their first meeting. We need to go, now. What's wrong? Just trust me. They practically ran down the trail, Jae-sung's hand occasionally catching her elbow when the path got steep, his body tense with controlled urgency. When they reached the car, he made a call in rapid Korean, his voice clipped and commanding. Then he turned to her. I need you to stay calm. I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that? What's happening? Someone's at the estate. Someone who shouldn't be. His eyes were hard. Someone who's there because of you. Kemi's blood went cold. What do you mean because of me? It means my mother decided to protect you, and that protection comes with a cost. It means you're about to learn exactly what kind of family you've joined. He started the car, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. And it means I need you to be ready for the world to stop making sense. They drove back in terrifying silence, Jae-sung's phone ringing constantly, his responses short and deadly. When they pulled up to the estate, there were 3 additional cars in the driveway, black, expensive, wrong. Jae-sung parked and turned to her. No matter what you see in there, stay behind me. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't interfere. Understand? Jae-sung, you're scaring me. Good. Fear will keep you smart. He got out of the car, then paused. Kemi, my mother chose you. That makes you family now. And in my family, that means I'll die before I let anyone hurt you. But it also means you're about to meet the monsters we usually keep hidden. He walked toward the house, and after a moment of pure terror, Kemi followed. Inside, the pristine quiet of the estate had been replaced by dangerous tension. Men in suits lined the hallway, not staff, but soldiers, their eyes tracking every movement. Voices carried from the main sitting room, Korean spoken too fast and angry for Kemi to follow. Jae-sung walked straight toward the noise, his body language shifting into something that made everyone they passed step back. He was a mafia boss. That's what he became in those hallways. Not just a son or a businessman, but power incarnate, and Kemi was walking in his shadow into something that would change everything. Again. The sitting room had been transformed into a battlefield. Aomioni sat in her chair like a queen on a throne, her spine straight despite her recent illness, her face calm, but her eyes blazing with fury. Around her stood at least a dozen people, some Korean, some not, all radiating barely contained violence. And in the center of it all stood a man who made Jae-sung's dangerous energy look tame by comparison. He was older, maybe 50, with silver threading through black hair and a scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his jaw. He wore a suit that screamed money and power, and when he saw Jae-sung enter, he smiled like a wolf who'd just cornered prey. "Jae-sung," the man said in Korean, his voice smooth as poisoned honey. "Finally, I was beginning to think you were hiding from me." "Uncle," Jae-sung's voice was ice. "You weren't invited." "I don't need invitations to visit family." The man's eyes slid past Jae-sung and landed on Kemi. His smile widened, showing too many teeth. So this is the girl causing all the trouble. Kemi felt exposed under that gaze, like he could see through skin to bone, could catalog every weakness and fear. Aomioni spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. "Kemi is under my protection, Myungdae. You will not harm her." "Protection?" Myungdae laughed. "Sister, you're not well. You're making decisions based on sentiment rather than strategy. This girl is a nobody, a waitress who happened to be in the right place at the right time. She doesn't deserve our family's protection." "She saved my life, and we've paid her. I transferred a generous sum to her account this morning. She should take the money and disappear before she gets hurt." Kemi found her voice. "I didn't ask for money." Every eye in the room turned to her. Jae-sung tensed beside her, his hand moving subtly toward his jacket. Myung-dae studied her with new interest. "You speak. How refreshing. Tell me, girl, do you understand what you've walked into?" "I understand that I helped someone who needed it, and now people are angry about it for reasons I don't understand." "The reasons are simple. My sister announced to several important people that she's adopted you as family. In our world, that means you're under our protection, under our name, under our power." He stepped closer, and Jae-sung moved to block him. "It also means our enemies now see you as a target. Every rival family, every ambitious lieutenant, every fool with a grudge now knows that hurting you would hurt us. You've become a weapon without even knowing it." Kemi's blood went cold. "I never asked for that." "Doesn't matter what you asked for, matters what you got." Myung-dae looked past her to Aomioni. "Send her away, sister, before someone uses her to hurt you." "No." "Then you're being sentimental and stupid, and I'll handle this myself." Jae-sung moved so fast Kemi barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he was between her and Myung-dae, his hand inside his jacket, his voice deadly quiet. "Touch her and find out what happens, uncle." The room erupted in motion. Men reached for weapons. Others moved to defensive positions. Aomioni stood, her voice cracking like a whip. "Enough!" Everyone froze. Aomioni walked forward slowly, her age suddenly showing in every careful step, but her presence filling the room. She stopped between her son and her brother, looking at both of them with disappointment. "Myung-dae, you forget yourself. I am still head of this family. My word is law." "Your word is getting us killed." "My word is final." Her voice was soft but absolute. "Kemi stays. She's under my protection, which means she's under Jae-sung's protection, which means she's under the protection of every person in this family who values their position. If you disagree, you're welcome to challenge my authority formally, but I promise you won't like how that ends." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Myung-dae's jaw worked, his eyes moving between Aomioni, Jae-sung, and Kemi. Finally, he laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. "You've gone soft, sister. Kindness will destroy this family faster than any rival ever could." Perhaps, but it's my choice to make. Aomioni didn't blink. Now leave. You've delivered your warning. It's been noted and ignored. For a moment, Kemi thought Myungdae would refuse. His hand twitched toward his jacket, and every person in the room tensed like a wire about to snap. Then he smiled that terrible smile again and bowed mockingly. As you wish, Aomionim, but when this girl brings ruin to everything we've built, remember that I warned you. He left, his men following like a dark tide. The front door slammed, cars started, and gradually the estate returned to tense silence. Aomeoni swayed slightly. Jae-sung caught her arm immediately, his dangerous mask cracking to show genuine fear. Mother, I'm fine. She patted his hand but let him guide her back to her chair. Just tired of men who think violence solves everything. He's right, though. Jae-sung's voice was tight. Kemi's a target now. Every enemy we have will see her as a weakness to exploit. Then we protect her. Mother, we can't protect her 24 hours a day. We can't. We can, and we will. Aomeoni looked at Kemi, who stood frozen in the doorway, her mind racing to process what she'd just witnessed. Child, come here. Kemi's legs felt like water, but she moved forward. When she reached Aomeoni's chair, the old woman took both her hands. I need to tell you something. Something I should have explained before, but I was selfish. I wanted you to stay, and I knew if you understood everything, you might run. Aomeoni's grip tightened. My family isn't normal. We don't make money through ordinary business. We control territories, shipments, and information. We exist in the spaces between legal and illegal, and we survive by being stronger, smarter, and more ruthless than anyone who challenges us. Kemi couldn't say the word. Mafia is such a crude term. We prefer to think of ourselves as organizers, protectors. We provide services the government can't or won't. We take care of our people. Aomeoni's voice was gentle but unapologetic. But yes, by most definitions, we're criminals. And by claiming you as family, I've made you part of that world. Kemi tried to pull her hands back, but Aomeoni held firm. I know you're scared. I know you want to run. But listen to me, child. The moment I spoke those words, you are mine. Your old life ended. You can't go back to your apartment, your jobs, your normal existence. Our enemies already know about you. If you leave our protection, they'll find you and use you to hurt us. Your only safety now is here with us. You trapped me. Kemi's voice shook. You made me a prisoner. I gave you a choice and you took it. I was honest that I wanted to protect you, to give you a better life. I just didn't explain the full cost. Aomeoni's eyes were sad but resolute. I'm sorry for that. But I'm not sorry for saving you, even if you hate me for it. Kemi looked at Jae-sung, desperate for someone to tell her this was a nightmare she could wake from. But his face was carefully blank, giving nothing away. So what happens now? Kemi asked. I just live here, pretend everything's normal while people with guns protect me from other people with guns? No. Aomeoni stood slowly, keeping Kemi's hands in hers. Now you learn. You learn about this world, this family, this life. You learn how to protect yourself, and you decide whether the safety and opportunity we're offering is worth the danger that comes with it. And if I decide it's not worth it, then we'll find a way to keep you safe while giving you distance. But Kemi, Aomeoni's voice dropped to something almost desperate. I've lived 73 years. I've seen countless people come through this family. Most want power, money, status. But you just wanted to help someone who was dying. You sacrificed your job, your money, your security for a stranger. That kind of heart is rare in our world, precious, worth protecting. Even if I don't want to be part of this, even then. Aomeone released one of Kemi's hands to cup her face. But I hope you'll stay. I hope you'll let me teach you how to survive in this world. Because I meant what I said. From the moment you saved me, you became my daughter. And I protect my children with everything I have. Tears burned in Kemi's eyes. I don't know if I can do this. You can. I've seen your strength. Aomeone smiled. You stood up to Jae-sung when he threatened you. You walked through this house with your head high, even when people looked down on you. You spoke truth to Myeongdae, even when you were terrified. You're stronger than you know. Jae-sung finally spoke. Mother's right. You have two choices now. Embrace this life and learn to thrive in it, or resist it and become a permanent victim. But either way, you can't go back. The finality in his voice broke something in Kemi. She pulled away from Aomeone and walked to the window, looking out at the manicured gardens that suddenly felt like a beautiful prison. Behind her, mother and son spoke quietly in Korean, their voices too low for her to catch. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass and tried to remember the person she'd been 5 days ago. Tired, broke, but free. That person was gone. In her place was someone caught in a world she didn't understand, protected by criminals, claimed by a family that dealt in violence. And the terrifying part? Some small, traitorous part of her felt relieved. No more eviction notices. No more choosing between food and rent. No more being invisible and disposable. She'd spent her whole life surviving on scraps. Now she was being offered a feast, and all it cost was her soul. Or maybe it was a chance to become someone who didn't just survive, but actually mattered. She didn't know yet, but she was about to find out. The weeks that followed were a crash course in a world Kemi had only seen in movies. Jae-sung assigned her a bodyguard, a terrifyingly competent woman named Jiwoo, who was barely 5 feet tall but moved like a weapon. Jiwoo taught Kemi situational awareness, how to spot threats, and how to move through crowds without drawing attention. She was patient but demanding, pushing Kemi past comfort into competence. Aomeone taught her the family's history, the web of alliances and rivalries that governed their world. She explained the code they lived by: honor above all, loyalty to family, protection of the weak. It was a strange morality built on violence, but guided by principles that made a twisted kind of sense. And Jae-sung watched. He was everywhere and nowhere, appearing randomly to check on her progress, asking questions that felt like tests, observing her interactions with others like he was collecting data. He never touched her, rarely smiled, but sometimes she'd catch him looking at her with an expression that might have been curiosity or might have been something else entirely. Minji continued her campaign of subtle hostility, spreading rumors among the family that Kemi was manipulating Aomeone, that she was secretly working for rivals, that she'd seduce Jae-sung and destroy the family from within. Kemi ignored it all and focused on surviving each day. A month after moving in, Aomeone called her into the study. Jae-sung was already there, along with 3 men Kemi recognized as high-ranking family members. "Sit," Aomeone said, gesturing to a chair. "We need to discuss your future." Kemi sat, her heart racing. This felt formal, official, dangerous. Aomioni folded her hands. You've been with us for 4 weeks. You've learned quickly, adapted well, and proven yourself trustworthy. The family council has agreed that you're ready for the next step. What next step? Official integration. Right now, you're under my personal protection, which makes you vulnerable if anything happens to me. But if you're formally adopted into the family, you'll have the full weight of our organization behind you. You'll be untouchable. Kemi's mouth went dry. Adopted? Legally, yes. But more than that, you'd become a true daughter of this house with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Aomioni's voice was serious. This isn't a decision to make lightly. Once you're family forever. You'll be expected to uphold our code, protect our interests, and potentially put yourself at risk for others. And if I say no, then you remain under my personal protection, safe but separate. You'll live here, but you'll never truly belong. Aomioni paused. I won't force you, child, but I want you to know that I've already made my choice. As far as I'm concerned, you're my daughter. This is just making it official. Kemi looked at Jae-sung, who'd been silent through the whole conversation. What do you think? I think my mother has made up her mind, which means nothing I say matters. His voice was carefully neutral. But if you're asking my opinion, you've exceeded my expectations. You're not who I thought you were. If you choose this, I'll support it. It wasn't quite an endorsement, but coming from him, it felt significant. Can I have time to think about it? Kemi asked. Of course, Aomioni smiled. Take as long as you need. This is your life, your choice. Kemi spent the next 3 days in agonized indecision. She called her mother, not explaining everything, but trying to gauge whether cutting ties completely would destroy their already strained relationship. She walked the estate grounds with Jiwoo, discussing the practical implications. She even tracked down Jae-sung one evening and demanded honest answers. They sat in his office, a space that somehow managed to be both sterile and intimidating, while he poured 2 glasses of whiskey and settled behind his massive desk. Ask, he said simply. Why does your mother want this so badly? Why am I so important to her? Jae-sung swirled his drink, considering. My mother had 3 children. My older brother was killed 15 years ago in a territory dispute. My younger sister, she left the family when she was 20, couldn't handle the violence. She disappeared, and we've never found her. I'm all my mother has left, and she knows this life will probably kill me eventually. He looked at Kemi directly. When you saved her, you gave her something she'd lost, hope. Hope that not everyone in the world is corrupt or selfish. Hope that kindness still exists, and maybe hope that she could have a daughter again, someone good who chose this life rather than being born into it. That's a lot of pressure. Yes, he didn't sugarcoat it. She's putting decades of grief and hope onto you. It's not fair, but it's honest. What do you want, Jae-sung? Not your mother, you. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I want my mother to be happy in whatever time she has left. I want our family to survive the wars that are coming, and I want... He stopped, shook his head. It doesn't matter what I want. Tell me anyway. I want to stop seeing everyone as a potential threat. I want to trust someone without calculating the odds of betrayal. I want... He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw past his walls to something raw underneath. I want to believe that someone like you can exist in a world like ours without being destroyed by it. The honesty stunned her. I don't know if I can be what you both need. Neither do I. He smiled slightly. But you're still here, which means part of you wants to try. He was right. Despite everything, the danger, the lies, the impossible situation, part of her wanted this, wanted to belong somewhere, wanted to matter to people who'd risk everything to protect her. If I do this, Kemi said slowly, I need promises, real ones. Name them. I need freedom to leave if it becomes too much. I need honesty about what's happening, no more surprises. And I need— She took a breath. I need to know that I'm not just a replacement daughter, that I'm valued for who I am, not who your mother wishes your sister had been. Jae-sung nodded. I can promise honesty. Freedom is harder. Once you're officially family, enemies won't care if you want out. But I'll do everything in my power to give you choices. He paused. As for the last part, my mother sees you clearly, Kemi. She's not trying to recreate my sister. She's trying to save someone who deserves saving. That's different. And you? What do you see? Someone brave enough to stay when running would be easier. Someone strong enough to challenge me. Someone who might actually survive this world. His voice dropped. Someone I'm starting to trust, which terrifies me. The vulnerability in those words settled something in Kemi's chest. She stood, draining her whiskey. Okay, tell your mother yes, I'll do it. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Jae-sung stood as well, rounding the desk. For a moment, they just looked at each other, two people on the edge of something neither fully understood. Then he extended his hand. Welcome to the family, sister. She took it, his grip warm and steady. Don't call me sister. That's weird. He almost laughed. What should I call you then? Kemi works fine. Kemi, he repeated, like testing the weight of it. All right, Kemi it is. The adoption ceremony was both beautiful and terrifying. It happened 3 weeks later in the estate's formal hall, attended by over 100 family members and associates. Kemi wore a traditional Korean hanbok that Aomyeoni had commissioned specially, deep purple silk embroidered with gold thread, elegant and expensive, and nothing like anything she'd ever worn before. She stood beside Aomyeoni while a lawyer read documents in Korean and English, officially making her Kemi Adeyemi Han, daughter of Han Suk-ja, sister to Kang Jae-sung, member of the Han family with all rights and protections therein. When it was done, Aomyeoni pulled her into an embrace. My daughter, she whispered in Korean. My precious daughter. Kemi hugged back, surprised by the tears in her eyes. Thank you, Aomyeoni, for seeing me. Thank you for letting me. The celebration afterward was elaborate. Traditional Korean food mixed with Nigerian dishes that Aomyeoni had somehow arranged. Music, toasts, speeches about family and loyalty and honor. People who'd once looked through Kemi now treated her with wary respect. Minji watched from across the room with barely concealed fury. And Jae-sung stayed close, not hovering but present, his body language subtly protective. When a drunk uncle made an inappropriate comment, Jae-sung shut it down with a single look. When Kemi was overwhelmed by the crowd, he appeared at her elbow with an escape route. When she stumbled in her unfamiliar shoes, his hand steadied her instantly. "You're hovering," she muttered as they stood at the edge of the party. "I'm protecting my investment." "I'm not an investment." "No." He looked at her, something soft in his expression. "You're family now. That's more valuable." Later, when most guests had left and Kemi was exhausted from smiling and bowing and pretending she understood what she'd just committed to, Aomeoni pulled her aside. "There's one more thing," the old woman said quietly. "Something I need to tell you before you hear it from others." Kemi's stomach dropped. "What now?" "Minji has been spreading rumors, specifically that I'm grooming you to marry Jae-sung, that this whole adoption is a scheme to force him into a relationship." "That's insane." "Is it?" Aomeoni's voice was gentle but knowing. "Kemi, I won't lie to you. When I first saved you, part of me did wonder if fate was giving me a daughter and a daughter-in-law in one gift. You're everything I'd want for Jae-sung, strong, kind, honest, and he looks at you differently than he looks at anyone else." "Aomeoni, I'm not forcing anything. I'm not manipulating you, but I am telling you that if something developed between you naturally, I wouldn't oppose it. In fact, I'd be overjoyed." She squeezed Kemi's hand. "But that's for you two to decide, not me. Not the family, you." "He sees me as a sister now." "Does he?" Aomeoni smiled mysteriously. "Or does he see you as the first person in years who makes him want to be someone better than what this life demands?" She left before Kemi could respond, leaving her standing in the quiet hall, wondering if she'd just been warned or blessed. To be continued, special season greetings from AfroKorean Stories TV. This Christmas, remember, you are someone's miracle waiting to happen. Your kindness, your courage, your refusal to give up. These are the gifts the world needs most. As we step into the new year, carry this truth with you. Family isn't always blood, home isn't always a place, and love isn't always expected. Sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as strangers who see your worth when everyone else looks away. So be the person who stops, who helps, who stays, who chooses kindness even when it costs everything. Because that's how miracles begin, with one brave soul who decides someone else's life is worth saving. From all of us at AfroKorean Stories TV to you and yours, may your holidays be filled with unexpected blessings, your new year overflow with second chances, and your heart always remember that you matter more than you know. You are loved, you are seen, you are exactly where you need to be. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Here's to new beginnings, chosen families, and love that crosses every boundary. If you're loving this story of chosen family, cultural collision, and finding belonging in unexpected places, make sure to subscribe to AfroKorean Stories TV for more stories that celebrate love across cultures. Drop a comment about what you think will happen between Kemi and Jae-sung. Will they stay family or become something more? And like this video if you believe that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into.